99% of lifters don't know these training tricks. We're going to try to keep them coming at you pretty rapid fire because there's going to be 12 of them. Now, when I say training tricks, this is going to be anything from technique-related things to strategy-related items to, quite frankly, just flat-out logistical items. Now, some of you are going to watch some of these and be like, I know this. Who wouldn't know that? And some of you are going to find some of them to be a surprise. But for those of you who are watching some of them and think that everybody knows that particular trick or that particular strategy, remember, you are watching a lifting video on YouTube. You are not probably part of the 99%. So give some other people some slack. They just might find out that they're pretty useful. Number one, how to unrack a heavy bench by yourself. Because you don't want to line up too close to the hooks, of course. You don't want to end up benching underneath the hooks and getting pinned by those J-hooks. So here's the strategy. When you're trying to unrack a heavy bench, you want to use the leverage that is provided by the rest of your body. So the steps are elbows out and back slightly, hips up off of the bench, unrack the bar, and then bring your hips back down to the bench as you bring the bar into position over your shoulders. Number two, how to add additional 45-pound plates or additional bumper plates onto the bar, or equivalently take them off during a deadlift or a clean or a snatch or something like that. And the key is to use a small plate. I'm just going to say a 2.5-pound plate. If you're lifting in kilograms, this could be a 0.5 kilogram plate or a 1 kilogram plate. You could use a 5-pound plate. It doesn't really matter. Some people, I've heard people refer to this as the belt jack, if you will. In other words, they're going to use their lifting belt, but you just need something that will allow you to roll the 45-pound plate, the innermost plate, up onto that 2.5-pound plate here we're using in this case, so that it comes off the ground just enough so that you can slide other full-size plates on and off very easily. It will make your life much easier when you're loading and unloading your deadlift. Now, of course, if you have an actual deadlift jack, use that, of course. Those are great. Or if you want to make one, we have the Fishhook jack. We've got a video on how to easily make your own wooden deadlift jack, and that's really easy to do. We'll link to that below. Number three, lifting shoes. The quick recommendation here is wear lifting shoes. The most important feature of lifting shoes, it's not the heel, it's the very rigid, non-compressible sole, so that you have real efficient force transfer between you and the floor, which is really important under heavy loads. Number four, chalk. It's a beautiful thing. It helps absorb the natural oils, the natural moisture that is in your hands, so you've got friction between you and the bar. If your gym doesn't have it, sneak it in, bring it in, whatever. You can use liquid chalk, but you've got to use chalk. It makes a huge difference. You're using it for the same reason that gymnasts and rock climbers use it. Number five, small plates, specifically smaller than 2.5-pound plates if you're in the pound world. Or if you're in the kilogram world, you're going to need some plates that are smaller than 1.25 kilogram plates or smaller than 1 kilogram plates. In other words, you're going to need 0.5 kilogram plates. And in the pound world, you're going to need 1.25-pound plates or smaller. They make them. We've got a whole bunch of sets here in the gym. We've got a bunch of 1.25-pound plates, but we've also got multiple sets of 1/4-pound plates, 1/2-pound plates, 3/4-pound plates, 1-pound plates. Everybody is going to need to use these plates for presses, for benches. If you're snatching, clean and jerking, you're going to need to use them for that. But then a lot of people also, females are going to need to use them for squats and deadlifts. Older folks are going to need to use them for squats and deadlifts, but have 1.25-pound plates and possibly even smaller plates than that. If you're taking your training seriously, if you're putting in all this work, then take your training seriously and get the appropriate equipment as well. You will probably need to bring your own. Most commercial gyms, unless you're at an Olympic weightlifting gym like snatch and clean and jerk, they're definitely going to have 0.5 kilogram plates. But beyond that, you're probably going to need to bring your own. But you need, for some of those lifts that require smaller jumps, right? Like a press or a bench uses smaller muscle groups, so we need to make smaller jumps. We need to have the ability to make smaller jumps, so you need smaller plates. Number six, here's a tip for unloading your deadlift. You can unload one side entirely of all plates. So the first couple plates coming off the bar, let's say you got 315 or something like that on the bar. The first couple 45-pound plates you can take off using the 2.5-pound plate that I discussed earlier. The last plate, you've got to work a little bit to take that plate off, but then take all the plates off that side, make sure the collar is off on the other side, and simply walk the bar up until that bar is sitting vertically, and then take the bar out of the now vertical stack of plates, and then it's very easy to put those plates away after that. Number seven, a training log. Have one. A training log is one of the main things that separates training from exercise. There's nothing wrong with exercise. Exercise is what you want to do when you want to get hot and sweaty and tired and feel like you've accomplished something, but training is what you do when you're actually trying to accomplish something specific, right? There's a goal in mind, there's a program, and so because of those things, you want a history of where you've been, because that also functions as a map toward where you're going. Your training log is that thing. Have a training log. Number 8, make sure if you are training on your own, make sure that you set the safeties appropriately. Make sure that you use safeties, and then make sure that you set the safeties appropriately for both the squat and the bench press. Real quick, they simply need to be low enough that they don't pose a problem, that you're not running into them, of course, but also high enough that they save you from trouble. We've got videos on both of these, but here's the important takeaway is you need to do a practice fail. At a light weight or with the empty bar, do a practice fail. Actually do a fail, do the crawl of shame out from underneath on the squat once you've set it down on the pins, or take an empty bar and set it down on the pins when you're benching. Make sure you can roll it back over your throat and your face. Make sure that if you are lifting alone, you are still lifting alive. 9, focal point. Make sure that you have one, so you should not be lifting with your eyes closed, even when you're straining really hard. Keep your eyes open, and your eyes should also not be wandering, but you also want to make sure that the focal point that you choose actually supports what it is that you're trying to do. So for starters, for instance, don't do the old 80s, 90s high school football room, or powerlifting meet thing. You got to look up to go up, right? In the squat, that's never true in life ever, unless maybe like you're rock climbing or something like that. So pick a focal point that reinforces what it is that you're trying to do. So for example, on the press, you're going to pick a focal point that's pretty much eye height straight in front of you on the wall. This is one of the reasons why we recommend don't lift in a place with mirrors, because you want to look at something that's not moving, not something that is moving, especially not your own eyeballs, because you're going to move around a little bit on the press. On the bench press, you're going to find a spot on the ceiling. You're going to stare at it. You're not going to watch the bar. On the deadlift, you're going to pick a spot out in front of you, maybe 8 to 10 feet in front of you on the floor. On the squat, you're going to pick a spot maybe 4 to 6 feet in front of you on the floor, because remember, on the squat, you're reaching back with your hips, you're pointing your chest down at the floor, you're shoving your knees apart, and on the way up, you want to stay in that lean, right? You want to drive your hips up and stay in that lean. And if you tend to look up, which is a real common thing by people who have unfortunately seen too many 80s and 90s fitness magazines and stuff like that, or just remember lifting from their 80s football days or something like that, if you lift your head, your chest tends to follow suit, and if you lift your chest early, it makes for a much harder, weaker, less efficient squat. So have a focal point that supports what it is you're trying to do. Number 10, breathing and bracing. In other words, getting tight. In short, if the bar is moving, you're not breathing. So in the beginning, we've got videos that cover this more in depth, but at the beginning of the rep, take a breath, hold that breath. Let's talk about the squat, for instance. Hold that breath all the way down, all the way back up with tightly clenched abs, as if you expect to get really every muscle in your midsection, but let's just say abs for now. Treat it as if you expect to get punched from every single side at once. You are clenching every single muscle in your midsection to get tight, to brace hard, to make your spine a rigid column instead of the wiggly column of bones that it actually is. So you're going to hold that breath all the way down and all the way back up. Breath is stability. You know this if you've ever tried to push anything ever in life that was remotely stuck, whether it's a box on a floor or a door that's stuck or a car that's stuck in a ditch or something like that. Everybody does the same thing. They take a big breath and they go, and they push real hard and they hold their breath while they're doing it, right? It's the same thing we do when we're constipated, right? We know how to kind of naturally do things that are physically hard, but we get in the weight room, we've heard other things, this whole breathe in on the way down and breathe out on the way up. Don't do that, it's silly. Just hold that breath. By the way, you should be able to hold that breath correctly with your mouth open or closed. So to make sure that you're not doing it against your lips, because that's not where you're holding your breath. You're not trying to look like a pufferfish or a blowfish or whatever it is. You're not doing this. Right, you should be holding your breath in the back of your throat against a closed glottis. So to check, see if you can do it with your mouth open. And if you're wondering how on earth do you hold your breath with your mouth open, simply say the word hic and hold the CK sound. Hic! That's how you're holding your breath. You can do that with your mouth open or your mouth shut. Number 11, if you've got a slippery bench, in other words, you tend to slide a little bit on your bench. For starters, don't wear a slippery shirt. So plain old cotton. They make shirts that are kind of specialized for this. You can get some gripping material on the back. You can certainly go ahead and get one of those. But beyond that, just wear plain old cotton. But if you find yourself sliding on the bench, go out and get yourself a rug pad. That's kind of, sticky piece of latex / rubber, whatever that is, that goes underneath a rug to keep it from sliding in the hallway. We'll link to some below, but you can find them anywhere. You don't need much. You need about, a foot wide by a couple feet long, something like that. You can get them on Amazon or Target or Walmart or whatever, and just put that on your bench, and then you can lay on top of that. There's other solutions here. You can use strength bands, those resistance bands. You can put that down. I've seen that work. I've seen people use a yoga mat in a pinch, but a rug pad is something you can roll up. You can keep it in your duffel bag really easily. It works very, very well. And last, number 12, how to put on knee sleeves. Now, if you've got knee sleeves that are real stiff, let's say you've got like stoic knee sleeves or you've got SBD knee sleeves, we'll link to a video below that covers how to put them on. But in general, if you've got your basic, let's say 7mm knee sleeves like Iron Bull or Ray-Ban or something like that, the way that you want to put on your knee sleeves, or a way that works very well, is to first get the knee sleeve inside out, upside down, and backwards, all right? Also, of course, make sure you do this before you put on your shoes. You will make that mistake at least once. But what you're gonna do, once it's inside out, upside down, and backwards, is you're gonna slide it up over your ankle, so it's sitting kind of low on your, low on your leg at that point. Then you'll turn it around back so that it's facing forward again. It's just backwards because it goes around the ankle a little bit more easily that way. Then you'll turn it back around so it's facing forward, and you'll slide it up so that the top of the knee sleeve, what will eventually be the bottom of the knee sleeve, is right where you want it to be. In other words, kind of high on the calf or just a little bit below the knee. Then you'll grab low on the knee sleeve and pull that up so the knee sleeve slides over itself. And that's the key. You're doing this so that the knee sleeve slides over itself instead of sliding over your, sticky, sweaty, legs that, makes it real hard to do. So as always, we hope these tips help you get stronger and live better.